So Costas, we talked about this S-curve and sort of all these iterations of starting when it's not quite working and then it goes in, and then when you're at the top of the market and you're about to lose it, as it were. One of the things I think now, we live in a world where it's just so much quicker, it's moving so much faster. How does a business assess where they are, especially as the danger is, as you pointed out, is that as you get to the top, that's probably when you're making the most money and everything's going really well, but it's about when it's how does a business keep up with where they are and know where they are? It's almost like self-awareness, but as a business, isn't it? How does that happen?
Yeah, so I think, well, one of the things we've already talked about is to really keep the pace in yourself, knowing that the world will change, even if you don't expect it and you think you've just about understood how it works, continuously forcing yourself to come up with new news for that market with new products. But through the speed, you will also have to change a little bit what used to be your criteria, for example, for launching new products. I think we're completely going away from the age where everything was overly designed and validated through massive amounts of research before anything got launched. I think the fail faster, which we talked about before, actually has you could call it being prepared to work with more ambiguity when you launch a product, and not trying to get everything 100% confirmed before you press the button and go. So being roughly right rather than precisely wrong is maybe a way of framing that. Allowing the cycles to be shortened, and in particular to remove some of the hurdles you've now put in place before launching new things into the market. That's, I think, an ugly reality. Actually, it's not necessarily ugly, but it's a reality many consumer product categories at least are facing, is there's just no time to spend a year refining something to perfection. Basically, you launch something when it's 80% there, and then you launch new improvements along the way. It's a little bit like what the software industry has been doing for 2 decades. Launch a version 1, and before you know it, version 1.2 is out already. Well, what's stopping consumer categories from doing exactly the same thing? Just because it only has positives.
And one of the things I'm interested in is we talk a lot about product and product innovation. Mm-hmm. What about the experience around that product? How do you, if you take Apple as an example, they've got their products. One of their innovations was the Apple Store. But of course they didn't change the product for the store itself. I know they're continually changing the products too, but that was just a delivery mechanism that changed our interaction with those products in quite a significant way suddenly. So that was an innovation, but not about the product itself, but the experience around that product. How does a company start to think about that in an economy that's more experience-led in many ways than product-led? Mm-hmm. How does a company start to address that? Is there any ways they start to tackle that?
Yeah, I think actually the Apple Store is a funny one. I heard someone say that the Apple Store is not a store, it's a cathedral where you go and worship the product, and it's not even aimed at selling stuff. You don't even have to buy, it's just there. I think don't get caught up in this sort of fad that everything has to be complete user experience, because what is right for Apple is probably not right for you. Just like what is right for Unilever is not right for Procter & Gamble, and every category is different. I do think that let's say the upcoming generations of consumers, the Z gens, the Y gens, they have grown up with very, very short attention spans, you could say, because they can zap between everything all the time. Is if you start looking at your product more as a journey of experiences, is just realizing, when can I actually make an impact? And that's not going to be through Apple stores, if you're in laundry detergents, for example, but there may be different ways of doing it. And just realizing that, where let's say maybe in the 1950s it was all about how does my product perform in the machine or when I use it, that's now moved to how is my customer interacting with my product at shelf and at consumption and maybe after consumption. Maybe there are many more touch points you're simply not, say, using at the moment, and maybe we're entering the age of consumer journeys rather than just consumption moments. And I do think it will be different for every category, and it's definitely not something to just copy what everyone else does or what you think is. I mean, having a Twitter page or a Facebook page or whatever, that's not really what this is about. It's really about understanding when can I interact with my consumer and how would be the best way to do it.